This brother, he's one of the hardest working poets that I know. I give you Eddie Caine.
Coming to you live from the Milky Way, planet Tiamat, also known as Mother Earth. Welcome humans, earthlings, and mankind alike to another episode of Fiyah Conversations. I'm your host, Eddie Caine. Whoa, what's up fam? How you doing? This is your boy Eddie Caine. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Fiyah Conversations. Before we begin, I have to give a big shout out to my folks in New Orleans. What's happening with you, baby? How you doing? My folks out there in Gulfport, Mississippi, Miami, LA, Chicago, my family in Nigeria, my people that's out there listening in London, I appreciate you. Germany, Sweden, Australia, my cousin in Puerto Rico, I see you. I want to really thank y'all for tuning in. We greatly appreciate that. We definitely getting some nice, good, positive feedbacks as far as what we're doing, and greatly appreciative of that. Second thing, I want to give a real big ups to my homeboy, my brother from a different mother, Mr. Vincent Broussard, the saxophonist from Grammy Award-winning Rebirth Brass Band. I want to give Red a big shout out for hooking these tracks up for us to give us that little different, extra nice flavor for Fiyah Conversations. So, big shout out to Vince, man. We love you for that. We definitely appreciate it. Also, before we get the show started, man, I just want to talk about what's going on out here in the world today. First thing, you just got to remember, you got to stay black 365. Everything is still messed up, but we still got to get it together. But today's show is going to be a big one. We're going to talk about that big elephant in the room that nobody wants to discuss. I'm talking about the big S word, slavery. Why is it that nobody ever wants to talk about slavery? They don't mind talking about the Holocaust. They don't mind talking about what happened to the Native Americans and Trail of Tears and things like that. But when it comes to black people, in particular, African Americans, or if you want to call them American Africans, slavery is always pushed back to the side. We always want to say, no, that was way back in. Nah, forget that. But we want to remember things like Pearl Harbor and 9/11 and things of that nature. But we want to forget about the atrocities that were done to black people on this land. Actually, black people are the only non-immigrants in America. Isn't that amazing? But look, today's topic though, we're going to be discussing Willie Lynch and how to make a slave. And within this discussion, we're actually going to go into various details and comparisons as far as who this guy, Willie Lynch, and how to make a slave, how he was talking about how to break a horse in comparison to how to make the perfect slave. Also, what we're going to have on the show, we're going to have some Facebook comments. We're also going to have, I found this great letter that everyone needs to hear. It was written back in 1860. It was a letter from a former slave to his master after his master asked him to come back to work after the Civil War. Man, it was something else. What else we're going to have? We're going to have Brother Sharif. He's going to be giving, he will be discussing how slavery has negatively impacted white people. I know y'all wondering, like, how can slavery negatively impact white people? I can give you one reason. They can't take care of their kids. They've been having us do that for them for the longest, But other than that, later on the show, we're going to have Empress Asha. She will be breaking out, she will be breaking down the psychology of dealing with white denial about slavery and the cognitive dissonance and things of that nature. And to end the show out, your favorite poet is going to have a piece he'll be dropping called Underground Poetry. Once again, I want to thank y'all for tuning in to Fiyah Conversations. We about to get this show started. 3, 2, 1. Once again, we're back, family, and we're about ready to discuss Willie Lynch and how to make a slave. I will say that this character, may he be myth or real, it is quite interesting to come up with the type of reasoning and the psychology that Willie Lynch has. Now, if you haven't heard of Willie Lynch, I'll give you a brief background of Willie Lynch. He was a slave owner in the Caribbean. He came out here to America in the 1712 to speak to some slave owners in Virginia to teach them how to better deal with their slaves, show more brute strength and might. And he said his plan was foolproof and that it would last generations upon generations, hundreds if not thousands of years, or until nature decides to correct itself. And a lot of people have been saying that these letters are false, but whether it's true or false, these principles are actually pertaining to Black people and is dealing with our conditioning that's going on today. So even if these letters are false, whoever wrote this, I give you a shout out to even put in the way that we can even understand why Black people, or what you want to call descendants of slaves or prisoners of war here in America, African Americans, what we're going through today. All right, in his letter, he says, I have outlined a number of differences among the slaves, and I take these differences and I make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes. All right, he goes on to say, on the top of my list is age, but it is there only because it starts with the letter A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley, on the hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair, coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have this list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. Now, if you want to go ahead and look at that, let's just break that down just for a brief second. Even looking at age, look at how the youth are so disrespectful towards elders. They have no respect towards their parents. Even elderly in general, you hear things of, elderly getting robbed by people, getting beaten up all the time. But also in the same breath, you also have older people, elders or adults that have no respect for the younger generation or children. And so that goes both ways. That is definitely a problem there. And then when we talk about color or shade, okay, that is really big amongst the Black community, the African Americans. I know it's big amongst. I know a lot of Mexicans as well, and they're really big on the on a lighter shade of skin versus a darker shade of skin within their communities. But let's just go ahead and take that shade pertaining to quote unquote African Americans, or better yet, let's just start calling ourselves American Africans. Okay, we as melanated people, we come in various shades. And I'm from New Orleans, so you see it everywhere. Like my family, within my gene pool, the color ranges literally from milk to tar. But we are all related. We have all these various different shades. And so we going back to shade and color. Let's look at it right now. You have some people within the African American community that they will not date a dark-skinned woman for fear of having dark-skinned children, or vice versa, won't date a dark-skinned man because of fear of dark-skinned children. And this goes back to as far as dealing with that color thing. This is dealing with, psychologically, this is dealing with the Willie Lynch, because we are trying to fit in that white man's world. Now, Or we go back and then he's talking about intelligence. For some reason, amongst black people, African Americans, whatever you want to call yourself, we have a problem as far as picking on people because of their intelligence or the way that they speak. You know, we say things like, oh, you're trying to talk white. What in the hell is talking white? You know, or they say you're trying to speak proper. Nobody in America speaks proper English. If you want to hear proper English, you need to go to England for that. You know, go to London or Britain or something like that. But here, you know, I've been made fun of because of the way I spoke. You know, my family was really big on education and speaking clearly and distinctively, whereas people can understand what you're saying versus mumbling your words and, you know, people having to guess what you're saying. You understand the difference, and that has nothing to do with you thinking that you're better than someone or smarter than someone. But nowadays, education is more, or intelligence is more shunned upon versus athletics within the black community, and it's sad, you know. But then you're talking about sex, man versus woman, black man versus the black woman. We already know what's going on right now. Black woman saying the black man ain't doo-doo, and he's calling out a name, calling a female dog, you know. So, you know, we have a lot of this is going on, this strife between the black man and black woman. And as long as there's that strife going on, the families will never be whole. So these are some of the things that Willie Lynch was just outlining. And let's not talk about, well, better yet, let's talk about it. Hair. Hair texture. Okay. All right. I'm going to use New Orleans as an example because everybody knows about New Orleans. They say, oh, these Creole people and this and this. But, you know, Creole is not necessarily just because of the complexion of your skin. You know, it is, you know, some people think is you have to be light skinned, have good hair and this and this and this. That will be the what most people would think of the term Creole is. But let's take this back to the black community. When you see somebody with curly hair or straight hair or something like that, you know, we quick to say, "Ooh, I got family, I got Indian in my blood." You know, we quick to say things like that, but a lot of times we won't say that that curly, that straight hair got in that blood because somebody done raped their way into the gene pool. And that's exactly what they did most of the time, raped their way into our gene pool. But, you know, you look at women today, you know, we want, they dealing with the weaves and all, they want this long, luxurious hair. You know, men used to get perms and kunks back in the 20s and 30s or 40s, whatever. You know, we black people have this thing about hair. You know, it got to be nice and curly, it's fine. It got to be good hair because I want my kid to have good hair. We are so messed up, you know, and these are all just differences that everybody in the world has. Everybody. You can take these differences and not even use them on black people. You can literally use these differences on white people and make slaves this way. But this shows you the insane genius of Willie Lynch and what he was talking about. And then, when he went to saying distrust is stronger than trust. Come on, what's going on with us? Look at our people right now. I don't trust nobody. What Drake say, no new friends. We do not have trust amongst ourselves. Just even look at with dealing with businesses amongst black people. Man, I ain't doing business with them. They too high or they don't treat me right. What is, I don't trust them. How you doing? We need to be more like the white man. Whoa, see, why? White men don't trust other white men. But they know they have a common goal, and that's to get this stuff together. But we don't trust each other for nothing. We won't even get together and start businesses together because we do not trust each other. And another thing, you know, when he was talking about the differences and then the forms of action, when he said envy is stronger than adulation. Envy, that's all we do. We are a covetous people. We envy, or better yet, let me put it in today's terminology. We hate. We love to hate.
Everything is about he hating on me, she hating on me, he hate what I got. That's what envy is, and that's what we call hating. Because somebody has more. Or you might think they look better than you, or you might think they're smarter than you, and you just hating on them, or because they're happy, or they're in a good relationship, or they have a successful job, or have a successful family, or their children are not in trouble, things of that nature. Or even you yourself, you might be a straight up good person, and you have friends, or so-called friends, or what they call them, frenemies, who want to hate on you. That's what we do. We love to hate. And that is very rampant amongst black people. And those are some quick, simple things that Willie Lynch was speaking of. Now, all of that's just the introduction into the how to make a slave. You go on Google, check that out. Now, where it starts off, this is some crazy stuff, okay? Some of the language in here, it will offend some people. But it needs to be heard. Now here we go. It says, let us make a slave. What do we need? First of all, we need a black nigger man, a pregnant nigger woman, and her baby nigger boy. Second, I will use the same basic principle that we use in breaking of a horse. When we do it with a horse, we break them from one form of life to another. That is, we reduce them from their natural state in nature, whereas nature provides them with natural capacity to take care of their needs and the needs of their offspring. We break that natural string of independence from them and thereby create a dependency state so that we may be able to get from them useful production for our business and pleasure. Think about that for a brief second. They're taking you from a state of dependency upon nature to provide for you and your offspring. And when I'm talking about dependent on nature, I'm not just talking about outside farming and things like that. I mean, dependent upon yourself for your own natural state. And what they're doing is that they're removing that self-sufficiency, that independency, if that is a word. This is what they're removing, and this is what they have removed from the black people. What they've done is replaced it with something else. Now, if you think about it today, in today's age, what do black people depend upon the most? They depend upon corporations and the government. Who provides for black folks with no money? Who provides for white folks with no money? The government. Uncle Sam, Willie Lynch. If you don't have your own job, have created your own business, you working for either Uncle Sam or Willie Lynch. And these are the things that they have set up. And what we don't realize, this is still a slave type of system or society, because we are no longer self-sufficient or independent. Started thinking about KRS-One, teach to each is what rap intended. You know what I'm saying? And that's what this is about. Fire conversations. That's what I like about this. But now listen to this, okay? This is where Willie Lynch goes on to say, both horse and nigger are no good to the economy in the wild or natural state. Both must be broken and tied together for orderly production. Now, this is how they talk. This is what they think about us, okay? This is what they think about people in general. For the orderly futures, special and particular attention must be paid to the female and young offspring. Wow. Then you have both must be crossbred to produce a variety of division and labor. So they're saying they need to breed us so we can do different skills, whether it be you need some big strong men to work out in the field, or we need some light skin and want to teach them how to read and be preachers and be up in the house making lemonade and stuff like that. Now, both must be taught to respond to a particular new language. Wow. respond to a particular new language. What's that new languages that slaves learned? English. And where the other aspects, other parts of the world, Spanish, Francais. Parlez-vous français? Speaking French. You go all up in the Caribbean where you have French, English, Spanish. These are all new languages. All new languages to us. None of these languages are our original tongue. And the things that came with those new languages were nothing that were original to us as well. That's customs, beliefs, religion. Then it says, psychological and physical instruction of containment must be created for both. You can only go as far as we want you to go. Man, this is some crazy stuff. I'm telling you, you got to get that Willie Lynch letter and start reading it and just share it. Break it down. It's awesome. Here's something else interesting. Check this out. Accordingly, both a wild horse and a wild or natural nigger is dangerous, even if captured, for they have a tendency to seek their customary freedom, and in doing so might kill you in your sleep. You cannot rest. They're already implanting things that we dangerous. A wild horse might kill you in your sleep. A nigger might kill you in your sleep. Anybody will kill you in your sleep if you've taken away their freedom. But what they're doing is they're making it seem like they're psychologically crazy because they want their freedom. And if you actually go look this up, there is something in psychology. They came up with a term in the 1800s. I can't think of the name right now, but it was a psychological mental deficiency for slaves that wanted to run away and seek freedom. There's an actual terminology for this. And also by doing this, while they're not only breaking the slaves and training the slaves, they're also training the slave master, and he's also teaching his children the same thing. So this is how you had when excuse me, these people would leave from church, in their Sunday's best, eating their fried chicken and go and get their baskets and their blankets, and they go hang a black man. And they get that's where a picnic comes from. Pick a nigga. They go pick somebody, pick a nigga, and hang him. And then you have strange fruit hanging from the tree. All of this time while this is going on, you have preachers, people that's in the community, sheriffs, excuse me, senators, mayors, whatever. They're out there, they're watching this and they have their children. And so they're drinking their lemonade, eating their peanut butter jelly sandwiches, their fried chicken or whatever, and they're watching us hang. This is what they've done, and this is what they've instilled in their children. It's a sick psychosis. It's very sick. But that is the term where a picnic comes from. For time purposes, I'm going to go ahead and finish letting you know what they've done. Now, this is the only thing what they're doing right now. They're getting ready psychologically to break the slave, to break the nigga slave. Now, what they also say is, Willie Lynch says, you take the biggest, strongest nigga on that plantation. Somebody big like Debo or LeBron James or Big Magic Johnson, somebody like that, or Shaq. You would take these men, or one of them, the biggest one, you would bring him out in the field in front of everybody. And they would beat this man. I mean, beat him, whip him, torture him, everything. In front of everyone. To let you know, hey, we can get the biggest nigga amongst you and beat him and torture him in front of y'all. You just a little average somebody. What do you think you're going to do? Old man, woman, whoever you are. Now, once they do this, they get 4 horses. They tie each one of his limbs to a horse. His arms to one horse, another arm to other horse, one leg to one horse, another leg to another horse. They shoot off a gun to startle the horses. The horses go scatter in all 4 different directions. What do you think was left? That poor soul's torso. Arms, everything just ripped up. He's left that for everybody to see this sick, gruesome stuff. Then the next thing what they do is they take the second biggest nigga slave and they beat him within an inch of his life, but they don't kill him because they want you to know that we have life and death over you. You don't run shit. And this is how they do this. And that's what's going on right now. That's why you have instances on television where you see Mike Brown, that young, big, strapping young man that was killed out there, laid out in the street. What is about 6'4", 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", you know, easy 250 pounds. Let him laid out in the street so everybody can see. Body wasn't covered up or anything. This is what they do. That gets in your head. That gets in your brain. It's warfare is psychological. And that's what's been going on. Now, after they do this, we're gonna fast forward, okay? They split up the husband and the wife, the man and the woman. And they take him out of the household because he cannot defend or protect or provide for her. So they remove this nigga male slave from the quarters. So what Master nasty ass start coming up in there and doing is he goes and rapes the woman. He goes and beats her senseless. He mentally abuses her. He does this on a consistent basis. And there's nothing that she can do about it. He'll threaten her with her life. He'll threaten a child's life. Or he'll threaten to kill a man. But at the time while they're doing that, raping that woman, they out there raping that man too. Buck breaking and everything else. Look that up when you get a chance. So now the black woman has become completely broken. They send the man back in the household. Arguments are going to start. She hates his guts. She does not trust her man anymore because he can no longer protect or provide from her. Pull the black man out the house. Master comes back in the slave quarters. Sometimes he rapes her, sometimes he doesn't. But he lets her know, hey, you my property. This is what I can do to you. But he feeds her. He strokes her hair. He slowly begins to gain her trust. Sometimes he rapes her, sometimes he doesn't. But he does not let that black man protect and provide for her. So as this continues, the woman has a male son. She begins to fear for the things that happen to her son that happened to her husband. And she has a female daughter. Her daughter becomes more independent. And like her mother, she begins to distrust black men because these things are happening to her as well. Let's look at today. The black man is not in the home. He might be in jail. He might be in another household. Who knows? He's not in the home. It might be his fault. It might not be his fault. The black woman is at home with the children. But one thing you hear a lot of black women, what do they say? I don't need no man. I don't need no man. That's why you ain't got no man, because you keep saying you don't need a man, but you don't even know why you're saying you don't need a man. Well, really she do. And the reason why she's saying she don't need a man and don't need you as her man, black man, is because Uncle Sam got her. Massa got her. Massa taking care of her. Massa's providing these benefits, this house, this food, this cheap education. All you got to do is not let that man, those children fall in this house. And I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry, I'll take care of him. I got some stuff for him. Child support, jail, whatever you want to call it. And these are the things that's going on today if you look at with the Willie Lynch letters. And they go into so many other great details that I want you all, when you get a chance, get on Google. Willie Lynch, How to Make a Slave. And if you can't find it, if you need some help, go on my website. Go ahead and hit me up, www.IamEddieCaine.com, and you can check me out right there, or hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. But this is just a little brief insight what we're giving you about Willie Lynch and How to Make a Slave and the effects how it is happening with black people. So hopefully I was able to give you a good insight as far as what's going on that's taking place. But I want to thank you all for tuning in. This is your boy, Eddie Caine. Up next, we're about to have my boy, Brother Sharif.
I'd like to jump in about this question. How have the effects of slavery worked against Caucasians? man, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on this, because it's so rare for intellects to gather around this type of topic, because people simply overlook it. You know, it's obvious that the Black community has had innumerable negative effects because of slavery and the aftermath of slavery. But most often, no one really considers the effects of slavery regarding Caucasians, unless you're talking about the positive effects. Of course, we know that Caucasians, Anglos, have reaped an incredible amount of reward from slavery. This entire country was built off slavery. Other countries have been built off slavery. The United States has created and maintained a level of dominance in the world and on the world stage because of the effects of slavery. But that has come at a cost for Anglos or Caucasians. Yeah, so there are primarily three major negative effects that Anglos have encountered or exist within because of their peculiar institution. And the first one is the dependence or codependence upon another race for sustenance and survival. And I know that probably the lion's share of the Anglo population will be sincerely and severely resistant to accept the fact that they did not build this country. They did not build any significant society, and they could not have built any significant society without the contributions of slave labor. So from that basis, Anglos have developed their modern American culture and society around a dependence or codependence upon the Black culture and community for their sustenance and the sustenance of their systems that provide them sociological and economic power. The second big effect of slavery on Anglos is the fact that they have a psychological inability to deal with mental or emotional stress brought on by a sudden change in the status quo. So these Anglos have developed all of their systems around a dependence upon Black labor, Black dollars, Black ingenuity, Black resources, Blacks as a resource. And so the entirety of their economy, their society, their cultural power, their position and status is maintained upon that codependence, as we discussed in just recently. But what happens is, because over a series of centuries, their entire existence has centered around this codependence. If anything brings about a sudden change in the status quo, they have a severe inability to cope with that. So, the stresses that come from sudden change in the environment, whether it's economic, whether it's sociological, whether it's psychological, they simply just don't have the ability, they don't have the mental or emotional or psychological resource to deal with that sudden change. So you see this in situations where Anglos deal with Blacks and the Black participant or participants throw into stark reality the fact that Blacks have this animosity towards whites, and the reasons why. Well, their psychological profile requires that they feel that they are above reproach, above this perspective, this negative perspective. So they feel like everyone should appreciate them or have some kind of respect or appreciation for them. So when they are in a situation with not just blacks, but any other race, even other whites, when they are in a situation where they are not able to deny the fact that they are not appreciated, or the fact that they are culpable for others' negative circumstances, they almost short circuit. They're not able to cope with these concepts because their entire cultural identity is built around this farce that they're the good guys and everybody else is the bad guys. And then finally, there is the effect of the result of construction of these systems, these cultural norms, these cultural systems that have put them in power, and these systems being based upon a codependence of another race to accept a position of subservience and accept a position of inferiority is really a precarious situation. And to just cut to the quick, they have created a society and a culture and a cultural psychology that is self-destructive by its very nature, meaning that they are within a system. They've created a system that is designed for their to support their power, their position of power and their status, but in order to do so, it's built on a foundation of same. So this is a system or set of systems that cannot support itself indefinitely, because eventually blacks or African Americans or whatever you want to call it, and other ethnic minorities who find themselves in a position of less power because they subscribe to these systems, eventually they will either conquer the systems from within by finding strategies to support themselves and their ethnic groups, and begin to compete with Anglos on their own field of battle, so to speak, or they will unplug from the systems and create their own systems to support their own cultural population, their own ethnic population. Like you see this in the Vietnamese culture, the Chinese cultures, and other Asian cultures, and now to a greater extent you're seeing that in the Latino cultures, and they are simply unplugging and creating their own systems. When that happens, because it's an inevitability, when that happens in the black culture, when the black populations begin unplugging, their systems will not be able to sustain themselves, and they will collapse like a house of cards. And we see that during Reconstruction with the Black Wall Streets and the Freeman towns and etc. Blacks don't need actually to subscribe to this set of systems in order to survive. They are fully capable of creating their own systems to support their own population and succeed in incredible sets of circumstances, and we've seen that over and over again. But what you're going to see is that the Anglo systems are not able to survive without support from other ethnic groups. And so once blacks do unplug and once they create their own systems to support themselves and support each other, the Anglo systems automatically come crashing down. I really feel that this is a something that's going to happen. There's no alternative, because with the advent of additional education, with the advent of additional resources and technology, etc., it's becoming more and more. It's becoming more and more of a necessity for blacks to unplug, and because of these three areas of effect that we've discussed, one, they're not going to be able to deal with the situation because it's an abrupt change in the status quo. Two, they're not going to be able to understand or cope with it because their systems are dependent upon black subservience or participation. So, it will fall apart. And, basically when all that happens, you have this culmination of self-destruction, and they have nothing that they'll be able to replace the systems that they've built over 500, 600 years. They'll have nothing to replace that with. So, I don't know. In addition, I don't really think that they're going to find a whole lot of sympathetic ports to dock in because of the way they've defined themselves over history. Yeah, brother, I really, really appreciate being able to chime in and add my little opinion here. I think that, again, this is a really relevant conversation, and I think that this is an aspect that we don't often think on, and it allows us to put weight behind the entirety of the discussion.
When most of us think about the past, we think about slavery. We think about Jim Crow laws and sharecropping, things of that nature, which is post-slavery in America. But one thing we fail to forget is about the people that were freed, how they left the South and moved up to areas like Chicago, Ohio, New York, and things of that nature. And they took the skills that they had on the plantation with them. A lot of people do not know that a lot of former slave owners were reaching out to their best, quote unquote, former slaves to have them come back to the plantation because they were losing just that much money. And I find it quite ironic. But one thing what I wanted to share with you was an article, or better yet, a letter that I found on the internet. And it's from a free man, which is a former slave, to his master. And his name is Jordan Anderson. And this was written all the way back in 1865. I want to share this with you. A letter from a freed man to his old master. Sir, I got your letter, and I was glad to find that you had not forgotten Jordan, and that you wanted me to come back and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anybody else can. I have often felt uneasy about you. I thought the Yankees would have hung you long before this for harboring rebels they found at your house. I suppose they never heard about your going to Colonel Martin's to kill the Union soldier that was left behind by his company in their stable. Although you shot at me twice before I left you, I did not want to hear of your being hurt. And I am glad you are still living. It would do me good to go back to dear old home again and see Miss Mary and Miss Martha and Alan and Esther, Green and Lee. Give my love to them all and tell them I hope we will meet in the better world, if not in this. I would have gone back to see you when I was working in the hospital in Nashville. But one of the neighbors told me that Henry intended to shoot me if he ever got a chance. I want to know particularly what the good chance is you propose to give me. I am doing tolerably well here. I get $25 a month with victuals and clothing. Have a comfortable home for Mandy. The folks call her Mrs. Anderson. and the children, Millie, Jane, and Grundy, go to school and are learning well. The teacher says Grundy has a head for a preacher. They go to Sunday school, and Mandy and me attend church regularly. We are kindly treated. Sometimes we overhear others saying them colored folk were slaves down in Tennessee. The children feel hurt when they hear such remarks, but I tell them it was no disgrace in Tennessee to belong to Colonel Anderson. Many darkies would have been proud, as I used to be, to call you master. Now, if you will write and say what wages you will get me, I will be better able to decide whether it would be to my advantage to move back again. As to my freedom, which you say I can have, there is nothing to be gained on that score, as I got my free papers in 1864 from the Provost Marshal General of the Department of Nashville. Mandy says she would be afraid to go back without some proof that you were disposed to treat us justly and kindly. And we have concluded to test your sincerity by asking you to send us our wages for the time we served you. This will make us forget and forgive old scores and rely on your justice and friendship in the future. I served you faithfully for 32 years and Mandy 20 years. And $25 a month for me and $2 a week for Mandy, our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add to this the interest for the time our wages have been kept back and deduct what you paid for our clothing and 3 doctor's visits to me and pulling a tooth for Mandy. And the balance will show what we are justified entitled to. Please send the money by Adams Express in care of V. Winters, Esquire, Dayton, Ohio. If you fail to pay us for faithful laborers in the past, we can have little faith in your promise in the future. We trust the good Maker has opened your eyes to the wrongs which you and your fathers have done to me and my fathers, in making us toil for you for generations without recompense. Here I draw my wages every Saturday night, but in Tennessee there was never any payday for the Negroes any more than for the horses and cows. Surely there will be a day of reckoning for those who defraud the laborer of his hire. In answering this letter, please state if there will be any safety for my Millie and Jane, who are now grown up and both good-looking girls. You know what it was with poor Matilda and Catherine? I would rather stay here and starve and die, if it comes to that, than have my girls brought to shame by the violence and wickedness of their young masters. You will also please state if there has been any schools open for the colored children in your neighborhood. The great desire of my life now is to give my children an education and have them form virtuous habits. Say howdy to George Carter and thank him for taking that pistol from you when you were shooting at me. From your dear old servant, Jordan Anderson. Wow. I mean, that's really something for you. For the things that he brought up. And this is 1865, so we're talking about almost 160 years ago. He's talking about recompense. Our money, things due us. And that was 152 years ago. Mr. Anderson did not receive recompense. Now we look at it's called reparations. Black folks, we still haven't received it. And black folks, you need to get out there. Not even get out there. You need to stop. Stop asking for reparations because they're not going to give it. I honestly feel that all of these immigrants that come from around the world to this great gumbo melting pot called America is receiving a black man's reparations. They're receiving tax-free loans or interest-free loans, better yet. And they're getting waivers on taxes for their businesses for 7 years. You're getting various governmental supplemental programs and all. These are the things that the immigrants who come to America, they receive. And yet, the quote-unquote African American or the quote-unquote black man is still at the bottom. That is not by accident, my people. Don't think we're cursed or anything like that, because we're not. The chips have been stacked against us. But all we have to do is just get together, come together like glue, and make it all happen. It will take over time, but it will happen. All you have to do is educate your children, but first educate yourself. And we do need to get back to community and group economics, because this is the only way that we will survive and make it in this world.
Yo, it's your girl, Asha Nicole. I'm back again. Today we're going to talk about the psychological effects of racism. How can it possibly still exist with all the other things that are going on? One of the ways is denial, just flat out refusing to admit the fact and reality that there is still oppression going on post-slavery on top of the conditions that we were left in after slavery. That has a lot to do with cognitive dissonance. It's the name for a type of mental stress or discomfort experienced by a person who simultaneously holds two conflicting values or beliefs. So as much as a white person or a person of Anglo descent may want to befriend, marry, or assist an American African, he or she is shunned by his or her peers. And that kind of behavior is not welcome in their community. So regardless of what they think or feel, they have to act a certain way. Another example of cognitive dissonance is when you have to not be openly racist in the workplace. So a white supremacist or a Ku Klux Klan member or a racist person may not be able to express it at work, so they have to conflict with the inner selves versus the code of conduct. Another example of cognitive dissonance is the refusal to admit that Christianity is used as brainwashing back during slavery times, and it is still effective to this day. Regression is the reversion back to childlike behaviors, which we can also attribute to the elderly lady who was caught on video camera having a tantrum in the customer service line of a department store. Her racism had got so flustered that it bubbled out onto the outside, and she had an outburst, which is another form of acting out. Acting out would be an extreme expression of what kind of behavior that we might call unacceptable otherwise. So you might get together with a bunch of your buddies and put on some all white and run through the town screaming and hooting, but you can't do that as a judge. You can't act certain ways publicly, so you act out at night or whenever you find a chance. So another reason racism still exists is because numerous white people actually are disassociating themselves away from slavery. They're saying that it wasn't them, they never owned any slaves, but they won't give back the profits or the revenue, the benefits of free labor. So that's how they live with it. They can still inherit from their great-great-granddaddy because their great-great-granddaddy was a slave owner, not them. Another defense mechanism used, it's all natural, people. That's one of the things that I would like to include in this conversation, is that the psychological aspects that we're discussing today, they're actually textbook psychology. If you can look it all up, if you're a psychology major and you're listening to this, then you know exactly what examples I'm using to depict the point that we're making today. Back to compartmentalization. Compartmentalization means that it's the African American problem is the African American problem. And it has nothing to do with white people. They have their own problems. They look out for their own. And so justifiably, you can allow a black person to be oppressed, even if you're not the oppressor, because you are not directly causing the oppression, which you could probably help if you did want to help. Back to it. So another aspect we can talk about is projection of saying that Black people are so cruel and they're so mean and nasty and this, that, and third. But if you ask anybody in the African American community, we know the white people historically to be what we would call in modern day times like terrorists. Like they are the epitome of like Vikings. They come, they pilgrims, they rape, they rob, and they do crimes, and there's drugs involved and cocaine and all kinds of like, it's crazy to have a record and a history and of a culture of those customs and practices, then demonize another group of people as having those same qualities when we haven't even had the right to do anything of those natures. We don't have the power or the ammunition for it nowhere in history to be doing these kind of things to people. One of the interesting aspects of this whole ordeal is what we call reaction formation. So a white supremacist might want to act a certain way in a given situation, but has no other choice except to act opposite, i.e. the workplace. But my favorite example is when Kanye West blurted out that George W. Bush did not care for the African American people that were affected by Katrina. And Mike Myers went on with the show as if nothing was going on.
Subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about Black people.
Please call.
In the past few days, America and people have been stepping up to donate money, to do all they can to help people in New Orleans and all over.
I was trying not to laugh.
I'm sure in his mind he had some questions for Kanye, but that wasn't the setting to talk about racism or white supremacy. So he went on, he formed a different reaction. He's a great actor. He held it all in, actually, whatever other responses that he made a face and then just kept soldiering through white supremacy like a good trooper would. One of the most disturbing aspects of this all is a practice or a mechanism in the brain that's called intellectualization, meaning that this makes sense. White supremacy and racism makes sense. And back to Dr. Cresswell and what she said about the color confrontation theory, that the non-melanated people knew that their genetics were inferior to Africans or American Africans or African Americans or melanated people or whatever you want to be called, that so much so to the point that oppression made sense for the survival of their species. And the disturbing thing about that is it removes all emotion from the practice or the custom. Whatever you intellectualize, your feelings are not involved. Whether it's economics or what we call business or whatever, slavery, white supremacy and racism. It hasn't to do so much with what it feels like and everything to do with it making sense to them, which is also a form of rationalization, saying that I have a valid reason for what I do, and that's all I need to do it in order to accomplish what I came to do. The greatest person in my world right now is a white lady named Jane Elliott. She has been doing the brown eye, blue eye experiment since about the 70s. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. She's advocating for the accountability of the white society for the results of slavery, civil rights, disenfranchised Black communities, and any atrocities they have committed against us. If you haven't heard about her, look into it. It is worth the little 8 minutes it'll take to watch her video on YouTube. Again, I'm Asha Nicole, and you guys, I'll be back with some more fine conversations. You look forward to it because I look forward to it. I'll see you then.
I am here because I have been asked to do exercising discrimination based on eye color. Now, the purpose of this exercise is to give these nice, blue-eyed white kids the opportunity to spend about an hour and a half to 2 hours on the receiving end of the treatment which we mete out to people of color on a daily basis in this country. Everybody understand that? They're not going to learn because they can't learn, and because we're going to set it up so they can't learn. And if they succeed, who has failed? We have. Do you people want to fail? No. If they get power, who loses power? We do. You want to lose power? No. We're going to accuse them of not being as smart as we are. We're going to accuse them of not being as clean as we are. We're going to lower our expectations for them. We're going to force them to live down to our expectations of them. And when they do, we're going to blame their inability to perform on the color of their eyes. Now, what do we call men that we want to keep in their childlike state? Boy. We're going to call these males boy. You're not going to use their given name. You're going to call them boy. Or you're going to call them fool. We are going to give them no respect. White people's number one freedom in the United States of America is the freedom to be totally ignorant about those who are other than white. And our number two freedom is the freedom to deny that we're ignorant. And believe me, this is how the system works. We make laws to support white superiority and to reinforce white superiority. And when you catch on to how it works, then we change the laws. I didn't invent this exercise. I learned this from Adolf Hitler.
Once again, we're back to another segment of Fire Conversations. I love this one. This is one of my favorites. This is called Social Media Comments. I love doing this. All right, so we recently posted a question on social media, and this is how it went. Do you think slave owners like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington secretly loved the women they raped, aka slaves, and their offspring, but could not show their love in public? Remember, these offspring were these men's children, and some of their wives were barren. I would tell you this. America's forefathers, Thomas J. and George W., they ain't getting no love. All right, here's a comment that we got from Joseph Vigil out of Texas. No. They were these type of white men who saw black women as secret fetishes. Worse, they dove into their secret fetishes by victimizing women who had no say nor rights. A man does not rape a woman he loves. Once a man rapes, he is no longer a man. That's some real stuff from Joseph. Then we have Jay Dillon from New Orleans, Louisiana. No, I don't. And they sold them off into prostitution. We have DJ Vocals. No, they hated them, and they hated all of their victims. Here we have M. Mitchell. It's not love if one party owns the other. We have Whitney Mitchell, who responded, I think very few did. Now here's an interesting one that we got. We got from Lalandra Hill. Yes, my great-great-grandmother did, as they lived amongst the whites in New Orleans, had land, and we still own it to this day and got the best education. But I'm told it wasn't raped, and they had a lot of kids. Here's another one. Boy, they going off on social media. Another one from Jay Dillon. These women were not courted. They were possessions. They were not chosen. They were raped. This is no fairy tale. Some were rewarded by their masters, but they were not wives, and many of their descendants created and maintained class wars within our own ethnic group and still haunts us today. Every story is different, I'm sure, but the reality is these weren't romances for vast majority, and many did not get treated well. They were treated just like any other slave, and in some cases, more harshly. M. Mitchell, she responded to Jay Dillon. Exactly. I'm not sure why history romanticizes the Thomas Jefferson-Sally Heming relationship.
We all know that Ms. Hemings was in absolutely no position to turn down the advances of any white man, let alone a president. If the relationship wasn't outright rape, it was at best one predicted on survival sex, in which Ms. Hemings capitulated to Jefferson's advantage as a matter of survival for herself and her children. We have my homeboy Tim Walsh. I like this one. Of course they did. That's why they raped whenever chance they got. Yes, they love the kids. That's why they let them clean horse doo-doo instead of picking cotton. Oh man, I love that one. But here we got one right here from Dorian Theodore. Maybe history has recorded the story as if he did rape his slaves because they wouldn't want people to know the president had jungle fever way back when. I'm just saying. So, not to mention, just because he purchased them doesn't mean he didn't or couldn't love them. That may have been the only way to be in a position to have a black woman in his life. Men actually pay for women they love today. Now, by all accounts, he certainly owned them as it was recorded, but in the grand scheme of things, may have been for different reasons. We'll never know because we have to take history's word for it, right? I like that one. I like that one a lot. And I'm going to go ahead and end that one with the social media comments. So it seems as if the consensus stated that Master didn't love the women that he raped or loved his children. Who knows? But I will leave you with this thought. Maybe that's why they set something up as far as house Negroes, field Negroes. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing to do, but, you know, working in that house, learning how to read, doing a little sewing or some cooking versus working 18 hours a day from sun up to past sundown in the sun. There might have been a little love that Uncle Sam and Massa was giving his offspring. But we'll leave that one with you though. So go ahead, marinate on that, and we'll be right back with you.
Once again, I want to thank y'all for tuning into another episode of Fiyah Conversations. Hopefully we have brought some light to you all about the Willie Lynch papers, the psychology of Caucasians, aka white people, with their cognitive dissonance in slavery, and even some of the Caucasians who are actually distancing themselves from white people because of the atrocities that they have done. This has been a great show. Once again, I want to thank Brother Malik. I want to thank Asha Nicole for her commentary. It has been great. Hey, if y'all need to holler at your boy, check out my website, www.IamEddieCaine.com, or you can check me out on Instagram, that's Instagram, I am Eddie Caine, or you can find us on Facebook, that is Eddie Caine Radio, or if you want to hit me up on my Facebook page, that's FB, they call me Mr. Eddie Caine. But we want to thank you all for tuning in, and I just want to leave you all with this. When things get too hectic, and the world seems to be spinning so fast and you don't know what to do, just step back and breathe. Slow it down. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to Fiyah Conversations. I'm going to leave this poem with you all, performed by yours truly, your boy Eddie Caine. This is from my CD, Frozen Like Water. This poem is called Underground Poetry. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
Lord, 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 release me from bondage, save my children, save me. Save me.
My father told me to acknowledge Jesus, that he died for us. But it's up to us to save us. You see, the guns and the rubbers bust at enormous rate, quick to procreate, too slow to say, hold up, let's wait. As long as we got money, we got faith. Pure poetry, no commercialism. Like the railroad, this is underground expression. From human oppression, the thickness of my root shows my blessings. Soundproof of my thought process, so master don't hear what we say. Hey, Willie Lynch don't play. Made an example out of me the other day. He did more than put lashes on my back. Verbal abuse is like animals are black. Boy, go sleep out back with the horses. Verbal assault slaps, trying to keep me illiterate so I can't read a map. I guess we are animals stuck in this trap, so I'll continue singing.
Lord, 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 release me from bondage, from bondage. Save my children, save my children, save me, save me.
Master got what he deserved. Met karma face to face. Boiling water in your eyes is worse than mace. Freedom is what I'm trying to taste. Running through the swamps like I'm trying to win this race. I've had it up to here. Tired of master infiltrating by using my peers. Rounding us up like cattle and steers. Since death was near, fear left this heart here and love is no more. Impregnated my sister with filth and called her a nigger whore. Master nevermore, nevermore. Satan, I'm out the door. Torn clothes got me drenched from open pores. I'm running to be free. God is with me. I know I'm gonna make it. My brother died to save me, and I'm saving my people through underground poetry. Master ran past me because I was camouflaged with the shrubbery. My ancestors got me blacker than these shadows at midnight. The moon is my light. It ain't about black and white. It's about doing what's right. Freedom's my plight, and I'll continue singing.
Lord, 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 release me from bondage, from bondage. Save my children, save my children, save me. Save me.
Tired of running. Leeches all over, bleeding me, sucking me dry like society wash away my history, shooting lies at my people, but they still missing me. You see, his story was all about glory, but what's hidden in the story was that it was all stolen from me. I'm talking about empires back in 6K BC. The cipher says we must be free. Harriet told me it was my destiny to use underground poetry. Jah is blessing me with my second wind to fight this freedom war within. Thorns in my feet, the roses are sticking. But I ain't worried about it though, y'all. Cause I know freedom's finger licking. You see, God's son ain't no chicken. Gotta stand my ground because master needs an ass whooping. What more can be worse than death? A noose around my neck? I'm already there. But freedom's my last breath. Now finally in peace, I can rest. Listening to the survivors singing.
Lord, 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 release me from bondage, from bondage. Save my children, save my children, save me, saved me.